there, color lovers. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Quality Drive podcast. Today we will be exploring the science and art behind paints. We are going to be dipping our brushes into something bold, bright and exciting, and that is paints. Have you ever wondered why we sometimes get glossy shines paints or sometimes we get the matte look? Worry not, we have you covered in this episode as we'll be exploring different types of paints and what we use those paints for. My name is Francistown Botswana, and in having this conversation, I'm not alone. I'm joined by 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐐𝐿𝐻, our expert from the standard department, who is responsible for facilitating the formulation of standards for chemicals and related products. Help me welcome 𝐓𝐡𝐿𝐻 to the podcast. Good morning, 𝐓𝐡𝐿𝐻.
Good morning, Ma.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. As I've already mentioned that today we will be exploring different types of paints that we have in the market. We are going to start off our conversation the different types of paints that can be found in the market and their uses. And I would like you to take us through the different types of paints that we get.
Okay. Maybe let me start off by explaining what we refer to as paint. So a paint is a substance that has different elements. This includes the pigment, the binders, the solvent. And this substance that we are talking about, the paint, it is something that we apply either on our walls, it can be interior or exterior walls, and it also gives us a certain finish or a certain look to whatever it is that we'll be applying on. Yes.
There are a variety of paints that are available out there. Mostly you'll be faced with a lot of different types that you have to consider. Can you share with us the ones that we have available in the Botswana market?
Okay. There's a number of paints, like you've indicated. There's quite a number of paints. The different types of paints depends on maybe the application to which the one would like to use the paint on. It'll also depend on the shining or the matte, as you had indicated in the introduction. I'm quite happy that you are also an expert in the paint industry. It also depends on the toxicity of the paints. So paint can be categorized depending on either the application, like I indicated, that we want to apply the paint on. But today I want to just zoom into three different categories. The first one being the medium in which the paint will be used. When I talk about medium, I'm talking about when you mix your paint. Like I indicated, a paint is a chemical, right? Yeah. And it has different elements. And it has these elements being your binders and your pigments. So the medium would refer to, for example, if it's an oil-based or if it's a water-based.
You've mentioned the different characteristics of paints, and I do understand that they're classified in different types, like you've already mentioned, label, water-based and oil-based. Can you take us through the other characters that one can find or consider when considering a paint or choosing a paint?
Okay, so let's zoom in first into the first one, the medium-based. Okay, so under the medium-based, like I indicated, we have the water-based. This is your common paint that is being used, especially Botswana after building. We find it more easier and readily available to get the water-based. So this water-based paint, we normally refer to it as the emulsion paint. This emulsion paint, it's easy to clean, it's quick drying, and it can be applied both in internal walls or external walls, as well as ceilings. Yes. And then we also have the oil paints. Now, furthermore into the oil paints, there are two types. There's the original, or if I could say organic oil paint, and there's the synthetic oil paints. So with the original oil paints, you'd find that the drying time for the oil paint, it takes longer than as compared to that of the water-based. Yes, and then also you'd find that it has a certain glossiness to it. When we're talking about glossiness, we're talking about the shining or refractiveness of that paint.
Okay. When I look at appearance, most of the time, as ladies, we like nice things. When you're having a project, you are building your house, maybe it's an investment, you are having an office block that you are building somewhere. What matters most is the appearance and the end product. Can you share with us the characteristics, maybe the factors that one needs to consider, considering based on the appearance of the whole project of the paint?
Okay. I think, like you're saying, we don't consider a whole number of other factors that we need to take into account when picking a paint. So we might look and find that we like the aesthetics of a paint, but then we also have to consider, where are we going to apply that paint? Because let's take, for example, if you have a metal substrate or a metal surface, you cannot apply the same type of paint on a concrete surface like your buildings. Therefore, it is very important to know where you're going to apply that paint, right? So in as much as you want the nice and final feel, the good feel of the paint, maybe looking at the texture of the paint or looking at the glossiness of the paint, you also have to understand where is it that you're going to apply these paints. Let's take, for example, if we're going to be painting outside, it is very important that we consider a paint which is able to resist certain weathers. For example, the rain and UV light and stuff like that, so that the paint can also be durable for a longer time. Imagine if you're putting a washable paint outside on your exterior walls.
Yeah, it's going to be washed out.
Exactly. So we shouldn't only concentrate on the appearance of the final paint, but we should also consider where we're going to be applying that paint and the durability of it.
That is really a nice insight, a beautiful insight that I do believe that our viewers will be able to get and maybe get guidance from that when they are considering purchasing the paint.
Yeah.
And appearance, the application where you are going to apply the paint, like already mentioned that there's a difference between interior and exterior, and it matters for you to select the proper and the correct paint for different types of exteriors that you are going to use.
Yes.
Can you explain further with regards to the application of the paints as a considering and as a factor that guides you in selecting a paint?
Okay. So in terms of the application, it can refer to how you apply the paint, as in, is it going to be a brush method, is it going to be a spray method, or is it a powdered paint? It could also refer to the surface in which you're going to apply your paint on. Is it a wooden surface? Is it concrete? Is it metal? We need to also appreciate that kind of application. So in terms of the application, if we're going to apply paints on our interior walls, then it'll be ideal to have a paint that is not toxic and it doesn't have a pungent smell. Normally this would be your water-based paints, because imagine if you're in a closed area and then openta or salakamonkonyo, it's not very healthy to have that kind of scenario. Yes, and then we have exterior, like I had mentioned. In terms of exterior walls, there are certain paints which guard against different types of weathers that can take place. Therefore, it's also important to know the paint that you're applying. Is it going to be able to withstand a certain type of weather? In different areas, you'd find the heat level is not the same. Different countries, different areas. In other countries or in other areas of Botswana, you'd find maybe it rains often. So you'd want a paint which is more resistant to the water. Yes. And then we have floor paints. I think we're talking about the application where we can use these paints. Now, when we're talking about the floor, this is where there's so much traffic. Traffic in terms of the surface. So it's a very busy surface. The paint that you're going to use, it needs to be able to withstand that traffic. So you'd want to believe that paint should be a bit harder than your normal average wall paint. Yes, it also needs to have, it needs to be heavy in the wearing ability, a resistance to that, and its durability as well. I mean, you can't be painting your floors every month, right? But you can appreciate the movement that is there, especially in different organizations as compared to Mama Laping. It's quite high. Take, for example, in your labs as well. You'd want a floor that is resistant to chemicals in case there are any spills. In your factories, let's say your car dealership factories, you'd want a paint which is not going to be able to wipe off, you'll be able to wipe off the oils that may spill there.
Okay. So with all this useful information that you are sharing with the viewers today, Machulume, how does one get to know what is the right paint to choose for this particular project? Let's say, for example, for the project, and whatnot. How does one get to know how to choose the paint, which paint to choose and whatnot? Do we get this information somewhere attached to the paint, to the product? And how do we get to know which one is relevant, which one is the correct one?
Indeed. So most or all of our paints, they need to have the instructions for use. So one way in which customers can appreciate or understand where to apply their paints, it would be indicated on their labels. But customers should not fear in asking the manufacturer or the distributor, the place in which they're actually purchasing the paint. Can I have this surface? Maybe it's a concrete surface, and I would like to apply my paint. Which paint would you advise me to use? And then we also need to appreciate the advice that you're going to be getting. It's just an advice. You as a customer are the one who then makes the final decision. So the distributor may give you the information, but then as the consumer, we may not be able to follow through on what the distributor is saying. I think another important point is that normally when we paint, we don't just apply the finishing coat of the paint. There's a primer, kind of the first coat. Normally on our concrete walls, you'd find it's a faint color. Normally it's white. It's usually white, but it comes in different colors. So this first coat, it's important that we know our final coat. Let's take, for example, if we're going to use a water-based paint, you want to ensure that the substrate, the primer that you use, will be able to blend with your final paint. And they both need to be of one. So if it's water-based, it should be water-based. You cannot mix an oil-based primer with a water-based finish. That's when now we start to see complaints about it's not durable. It all starts with preparing your surface and the different types of paint that you're going to apply on your surfaces.
Thank you so much for that insightful information. Now, as Botswana Bureau of Standards, we are the custodian of quality assurance, and I would like to believe that we do have manufacturers of paints in Botswana. What information can you share with our viewers today regarding the quality and the type of paints that that should be considered, or the quality of paints that should be supplied in the market?
Okay. I would like to inform our viewers that, as well as the manufacturers, as BOPs, we are here to assist in either having a product which is of a good quality, which is able to be marketed, and as consumers, that we are here to safeguard your safety and health and as of the environment by ensuring that the standards that we have, they take into consideration the different elements that are there to ensure that the quality of the paint is of good quality.
Definitely.
Yes, as BOPS, we do facilitate the development of the standards. So in the development of these standards, we as BOPS are not the ones who develop the standards. We do it with the different experts. This includes your paint manufacturers. It includes your regulator, which should be Ministry of Health. It includes your academia, which should, for now, we have University of Botswana and 𝐓𝐡𝐞, we've set in the committee. And it also includes consumer consumer protection authorities. Yes, we have them sitting in our committee so that everybody is catered for and their views and opinions are considered in the development of these standards.
Okay. As we wrap up our discussion, I would like us to go through the important parameters that you have mentioned of paints. Just to clarify, to buttress the importance of that, you talked about the binder and the base, for it's an important factor that one needs to consider. You talked about the finish, the finish and the look, or if you want a shiny look or a matte look, there are different types of paints that one can consider. We also talked about the application method, way to apply, where you are going to apply the paint. Briefly, Hela, just take us through that as we wrap up our discussion.
Okay. So in summary, what we need to appreciate and understand is that painting is not just the final coat that is applied on a surface. It all starts in the preparation of the surface in which you're going to apply your paint, followed by the primer that you're going to use or the substrate that you're going to use, which will then bind or glue your final coating, this final coating now is determined by Rona, because it takes into consideration maybe the texture. Maybe there's a particular texture that you want. For example, your Gaborone is kind of rough, not smooth. Or maybe you're looking into the glossiness of the paint. Maybe you'd prefer a shine to your final look or a matte to your final look. And then we also have to consider the place or the substance or the equipment in which you'll be applying your paint. So this would be, is it a furniture? Is it a window? Is it the floor? Is it your interior or exterior walls? And these are different and are applied differently and have different durabilities. So we need to be able to understand where and why we are applying the paint.
Okay, we cannot end our conversation without the safety of the product. First of all, we are talking about chemicals. Paint is a chemical. Can you touch base on the toxicity of the paints and the friendliness of the paint, or what one needs to know in relation to how safe is the paint, especially the manufacturers, the importance of having to produce paints, they are environmentally friendly, they don't include toxic substances, they can be harmful to the end users.
Okay. No, that's a very important point that you're raising. I'd also want to indicate that in the development of our standards, we consider the safety of the consumer and the environment. So in terms of manufacturers, as they develop or manufacture the paints, there are regulations that they follow. And these regulations are provided for through the Ministry of Health. Currently, there is no paint which is allowed to have lead in Botswana, as in all the paint that are manufactured or imported into Botswana, they are not allowed to have any lead. This is because we are trying to safeguard from the health hazards that lead has on the human and on the environment. So this regulation that we're using is based on the �WHO regulation. And then something that we should also take into consideration is that because we're talking to a chemical like you indicated, which is quite dangerous, we cannot eliminate all sorts of chemicals or hazardness within the paint or this chemical. So we have limits which are allowed within the different paint categories. So in terms of your VOCs, we would like the VOCs to be very low, and the standard will then stipulate to what level do we allow these chemicals to be there.
Okay. Thank you so much. At least there's something that is being done or that is being implemented by the Botswana government. Thank you so much, Machulume, for that conversation, that discussion on paints. We have come to the end of our discussion. I hope that we have changed, with this discussion, we have changed the way you see color, because we do have different types of paints, and those paints are used differently, or they have different uses. As we wrap up our discussion, I would like to encourage you to always consult standards if you have any question or inquiry in relation to the quality of any products or any chemical products. You can contact us at Botswana Bureau of Standards. We are located at plot 44149 in Francistown. We have a branch office in Francistown. We also have a head office in Gaborone at plot 55745 in block 8, just along Airport Road. You can also call us on 3903-200 or call our toll-free line, which is 0800 600 941. And we encourage you to always demand quality and stay safe.